What's up YouTube? Welcome back to Aviator Chris. Today we're going to take a look at the WB Sim Cessna 172 steam gauge mod and see how it stacks up to the real thing based on my real world flight experience. Stick around. Alright everyone, just a little about me. I am currently a private pilot pursuing my instrument rating, about 200 hours total time, and in instrument check ride prep. Alright, so basically for this video, we're going to do the same thing as the last one where I took the stock G1000 Cessna and kind of pitted it up against the real thing and talked about how I felt based upon my real world flight experience. And we're going to do the same thing here, talk about systems depth, startup procedures, ground handling, takeoff landing, and some maneuvers. Okay, so to go over some of the WB Sim features here, we have a full electrical system and circuit breakers which could all be pulled, and the corresponding system will lose power. We also have the custom Cat 140 autopilot with custom logic, including oral alerts. There's also a robust damage system with prop strikes, gear collapses, and so on, although I won't be taking a look at that in this video as that's not the intent for this one. And finally, we have a custom ADF. Clicking on the screen here brings up a custom submenu showing things like engine wear, if your spark plugs are fouled, and current oil level. You can also change the LCD colors by clicking here. And then by paging over to the second page here, you can enable or disable engine failures as well as state saving. So real quick here, we're using Air Manager to get the steam gauge instruments up here on the real sim gear PFD and MFD. Normally this is a G1000 cockpit. Alright, let's get into the startup procedure here. From what I understand, you can flood this engine. We're not going to do that today. We're just going to go for the normal startup procedure. So fuel pump for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Off and start. And we got a good start. Okay, so one of the things to note with this aircraft, the engine oil temperature does not just instantly come up to temperature like it does in the stock aircraft, so that's a nice change to see. Okay, so rolling out of the ramp here, ground handling, I want to say feels about the same as the G1000 Cessna that I tested. I'm not sure if they did anything with the ground handling in this. It feels, I mean, good enough. Quite honestly, it's not like it's super twitchy on taxi. I'd say it's fairly close to the real thing. All right, so we're holding short of runway 19. Basically, the footage that I'm comparing this to, we were using runway 19. Winds were pretty much right down the runway, about 11, gusting 15. So real-world conditions should more or less match the sim conditions here. All right, since this is a bit of a study-level aircraft, we're going to go ahead and actually do a run-up. So we're going to go mixture full rich. Power set to 1800. And check our mags really quick. Good, nice and smooth. Good. Nice and smooth. And we'll lean it out. Idle test, good. Okay. Alright, we're lined up on 19. So let's take off and see how it performs. 2000 RPM, engine instruments are in the green. Let's go full power. And I'm noticing I don't really, actually I need a little bit of left rudder to kind of stay on center line, which is pretty opposite of what the real thing would be. There's our rotation speed. And now in the air, we need right rudder. So it seems like there's just some weird issues with ground handling in this sim, requiring the opposite rudder of what is needed. Once you're in the air, you do need to stay coordinated, kind of normal here. This feels about the right amount of right rudder required, I would say. And I want to say for the temperature, it's about 85 Fahrenheit right now, which matches the real world conditions. I want to say climb out is about accurate, about 500-600 feet per minute. All right, we're going to transition to slow flight. And so far, looks like I want to say I need a little bit extra power. Maybe that's about right, I'd say. Around 2000 RPM to hold altitude. Controls definitely feel sloppy like the real thing would. Nothing's over-exaggerated here. Do a slight little turn to the right, add a little bit of power. I'd actually say slow flight in this airplane feels pretty good. Finish rounding out our turn here, and then we'll do a power off stall. Power's out. Let's hold it off. There's our stall horn. Hold it, and there's the nose drop. One notch of flaps out, full power. Nose drop was a little bit aggressive, I think, compared to the real thing. Let's get that power. Let's get that climb going. Next notch, positive rate, and clean up the plane. I want to say that that stall was very aggressive. I don't ever recall being that nose low in the real thing. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. Maybe it's just me, but definitely feels a little aggressive, I would say. All right, let's go for a power on stall here. That's about our rotation speed, a little bit slower. And full power. Let's hold it off. Keep that heading. And she just wants to go into like a little banking turn, it seems. Let's get that recovery going. Interesting. Okay, so as for the maneuvers, slow flight felt good. The power off stall felt pretty good. Power on stall wanted to go into this like sweeping left turn. Instead of stalling, I mean, I've seen in the real thing where it doesn't want to stall under a power on stall in the right conditions. But for the most part, everything felt pretty good. The power on stall was the only thing that felt a little weird to me, but it's been a while since I've done stalls in the real thing. So it could just be my memory, but for the most part, everything else felt good. Okay, we're lined up on landing. First notch of flaps. A little bit of ballooning, that's good. Pretty accurate. Let's go next notch of flaps. We'll do a full flaps landing here. And let's go last notch of flaps. The only thing I'm finding is it seems like there's a little bit extra drag. And I'm requiring a decent amount of power here to hold altitude. So we're just kind of sinking. It's interesting. Almost 2100 RPM and we're still kind of just holding low. The real thing would not do that. At least not in any conditions that I've seen. We're only holding about 70 knots right now. $65 knots right now. And we're down. A little bit less float, I think. All right, back on the ramp here, just some closing thoughts. A few things I noticed. Takeoff roll, still minimal to no right rudder is needed. Actually finding more left rudder is actually required. Once in the air, though, the plane in 99 or 98% of the situations seems to fly accurate. The power on stall is the only thing that I thought was a little weird in a maneuvering scenario, I guess you could say. But slow flight felt good. Normal turns felt good. All the right rudder, all the normal, I should say, rudder requirements were there. And then on landing, in full flap configuration, it felt like there's just a little bit too much drag compared to the real thing. Could just be the conditions. But for the most part, it feels like it flies okay. Landing in full flaps, though, it just required a lot of power to stay airborne. I think I was at like 2200 RPM on short final, and I was still a little bit low, which in the real aircraft, I don't think I've ever required that much power. So that's really the power on stall and the landing phase on full flaps were the only things that seemed to be a little off to me. But for the most part, everything else seems pretty good. All right, everyone, so thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and bell notification for future videos. And if you'd like to see the home sim in action, you could follow me on twitch.tv/AviatorChris. Be well and fly safe.